And she was laughing. Like, loud, obnoxious laughing. Over the phone. And I could hear it all through the. And then he said, she'd squeal, then another burst of that awful noise. I swear, some people have no volume control. You know how it is. This woman, my sister, has always been like this. It's like she's auditioning for a role in a cartoon where the main character is an overenthusiastic kazoo. She'd been coming over to my place for years, always with this air of pity. Like I was some kind of charity case. She'd survey the sofa, the bookshelf, the general. And then she'd drop the bomb. Oh, Samuel, this place is cozy. Makes you appreciate the little things, doesn't it? Cozy. It was always so pointed. I'd just nod, take a slow sip of my lukewarm tea. And try not to let the sheer, unadulterated gall of it curdle my insides. She even once brought over a throw pillow. A throw pillow. As if my current arrangements were somehow lacking in decorative comfort. Can you even? The sheer audacity of some people, man. She'd talk about her own sprawling house, Sometimes I'd just stare at the crooked picture. This particular time, she'd brought a small, knitted coaster, the color of overripe cantaloupe. For your mug, darling, she'd cooed, placing it. So she's on the phone, still cackling about something. I was trying to focus on this spreadsheet, numbers blurring into a meaningless grid of gray. My left knee started bouncing, a frantic little. She kept going, her voice a high-pitched drill boring into my skull. And the patio furniture is divine, she'd say, then that laugh again. I swear, the way she said patio furniture made it sound like the eighth wonder of the world. Like I was living in a mud hut, for Chris' sakes. She once described my microwave as quaint. Quaint. It's a goddamn microwave. It heats food. That's its function. Quaint is not in the job description. You know how some people say bless your heart when they mean you're an idiot? It was like that, but with words about household appliances. The faint smell of her ridiculously expensive perfume. I could almost taste the cloying sweetness of it. I need to call the dentist. My molar's been doing that dull ache thing again. I should probably book it sooner rather than later. Then, out of nowhere, she switched topics. Anyway, she said, her voice suddenly all business. They're doing the roof next month. My blood ran colder than a forgotten ice cube. The building. My building. The one she thought was just my rented box of sadness. The one she'd spent years critiquing, dissecting, and... She continued, oblivious. Honestly, Samuel, I hope they're not planning on. It's such an eyesore. I'd hate to see your view disrupted. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her on the screen. Her face, all flushed with amusement. The way her hair was falling a little over her forehead. The tiny little dust motes dancing in the shaft of light coming through her window. I remembered one time, years ago, she'd insisted. I was trying to save money then, you know? Every dollar counted. And she was there, waving her perfectly manicured feng shui. My living space consisted of a futon I'd found on the side of the road and a rickety bookshelf. Samuel? You there? She asked, her tone shifting slightly. A hint of impatience. It's just, you know, a practical thing. Making sure everything's up to par. I spoke. My voice felt like it was coming from somewhere deep in my chest. Yeah, I got it. She perked up. Oh good. So you're not worried about the noise? My turn to chuckle. A low, dry sound. Not really. She was about to launch into. You know, the kind of advice she'd give me about my small apartment. My little rented shoebox where she'd often pointed. The way she'd once ironed a napkin before placing her wine glass on it. As if my coffee table was a biohazard. The irony of that particular memory was not lost on me. It was like she was trying to sanitize my existence, one carefully placed napkin at a time. She'd also once suggested I Consider a neutral. Just wanted to make sure you were aware. Wouldn't want you to be inconvenienced. Right, I said. She finished her call, a quick love you, bye. And hung up. I sat there, the spreadsheet still open, the numbers still blurry. The faint smell of that cheap air freshener. It was a scent that clung, stubbornly, like a bad memory. I got up and walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water. The ice cubes clinked loudly in the empty glass. It was a small sound in the sudden quiet. The echo of her laughter was still in my ears, a phantom tickle of annoyance. I looked out the window above the sink. It was a gray day. The sky looked like it was holding its breath. And then I remembered. The actual owner of the building. The one who'd bought it on a whim, just a few years back. The one who'd spent a fortune renovating the whole place, top to bottom. The one who'd made sure every tenant, even. That was me. I just sat there. So yeah. That was it. The phone in my hand felt heavy. I looked at the cracked screen, the faint smudge from my thumb. My sister. My well-meaning, irritating sister. She lived in a world of gleaming surfaces. The whole damn building. The building she'd judged, the building she'd pitted. I put the phone down. The clatter it made on the counter seemed too loud. I walked back to my desk. The spreadsheet was still there, the numbers taunting me with their unyielding logic. They represented a life, a reality, that she. The roof maintenance notice. Of course. She'd seen it, probably tucked away in a. And oh, Samuel, are you sure you understand the implications of this? She'd probably thought. I leaned back in my chair. The springs creaked a protest. I closed my eyes for a moment. I could almost feel the weight of the building, a solid, reassuring presence beneath me. It was a substantial thing, with a history. It wasn't a shoebox. It was an investment. It was a legacy. It was mine. I thought about the conversation again. Her oblivious, chirpy tone. The way she'd assumed I was still the. It was a role she'd cast me in years ago, and she'd never considered the possibility of a rewrite. Making sure everything's up to par, she'd said. The sheer nerve of it. My par. Not hers. I opened my eyes and looked at the spreadsheet. The numbers suddenly seemed different. They weren't just abstract figures anymore. They represented rent checks, repair bills, property taxes. They represented a whole ecosystem of responsibility and reward. I picked up my phone again. I scrolled through my contacts. Her name was right there. Samuel. My sister. I hesitated for a moment. What would I even say? Hey, guess what? That place you think is so sad and small? Yeah, I own it. The thought made me want to laugh, a real laugh this time, not the strained, polite kind. I decided against it. Not yet. There was a certain satisfaction in holding on to this knowledge, in letting it simmer. It was like a secret ingredient that made everything else taste better. And the lukewarm tea, the slightly crooked picture frame. I stood up and walked to the window again. The gray sky hadn't changed. It was still holding its breath. But I wasn't. I took a deep breath, the air feeling cleaner, more substantial. I thought about the scaffolding. I thought about the view. I thought about my sister's little knitted coaster. I'll skip the part where I spent the. It was thorough. And deeply satisfying. I went to the kitchen again. I decided to make myself a proper cup of tea this time. Not lukewarm. Not forgotten. I went through the cupboard, past the dusty. The kind that actually tastes like something. As the water heated, I listened to the faint hum of the refrigerator. It was a familiar sound, a steady, reliable noise. She'd asked if I was worried about the noise. The roof repairs. The scaffolding. I wasn't. And not in the way she meant. I was worried about the dust. About the inconvenience. But mostly, I was just amused. Deeply, profoundly amused. I poured the hot water over the tea bag. The aroma filled the small kitchen, a grounding, earthy scent. I watched the dark liquid unfurl, a miniature storm in a mug. My sister. She meant well, I suppose. In her own, misguided, way. She saw what she wanted to see. And she always had. A project. A charity case. But the project had finished itself. The charity case had become the benefactor. I stirred the tea, the spoon making a soft, rhythmic clinking sound. The ache in my molar was still there, a dull throb, but it was a background noise now. The main event was the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the smell of the tea. And the knowledge that the building, my building, was about to get a new roof. And my sister, with her pity and her throw pillows, had no idea. The thought brought a small, genuine smile to my face. I took a sip of the tea. It was there, strong, and exactly what I needed. I looked at the notice about the roof repairs, still sitting on my desk. It was just a piece of paper, really. But for me, it was a reminder. A very good reminder. I'm going to need to get some new light bulbs for the hallway. The ones in there are starting to flicker. It's probably a fire hazard, you know. I should probably check the smoke detectors too. And maybe, just maybe, I'll buy myself a new throw pillow. An obnoxious one. Something in a color she'd despise. Something that screams I own this place, and I'm doing just fine. The tea was good. Good. I'll have another cup. And that is what happened.